Well met. This has been Brode, and you're watching Born to be
Cosmo.
Oh, snap.
Welcome to Born to be Cosmo, the podcast where we talk about all things Marvel Snap. And a milestone for us to celebrate. This is our 40th episode. And we've been doing this now for almost 2 years.
Wow.
We started in December 2022, and we did it as a one-off with we did it as a one-off, just the three of us, and then Binks joined us for the next two, and we just kept on doing it. So happy 40, guys! Couldn't be happier to be here with my two pals, ZombiesGoNomNom and NateWolf. And like always, our flexible schedule podcast is very beneficial because we can drop the pod when the news is hot, and boy, oh boy, is the news hot. So we're gonna but before we get into the more juicy details, just a kind of a bit of a check-in on the state of the game. Since we've last had the show, a new season of Marvel Snap has started with a new season pass card in Agent Venom that has had a pretty dramatic effect on the metagame, one of the stronger pass cards. And also Scream released alongside Agent Venom, because now we get 4 Series 5 cards a month. Is there any? Okay, all right. Series 4 and 5 as a construct is as anachronistic in the Snap paradigm as Big Bads at this point, right?
Yeah,
like
they don't release. They're all season or series 5
we are technically getting a Series 4 release this month by technicality, which is they're introducing a new card in this limited game mode in 2 weeks or something. And if you don't get it in the new game mode, you can get it as a Series 4 card on October 31st. So there you go. Finally a Series 4. I'm sure it's exactly how everyone wanted to get it. But free card in the... We should probably talk about that too, just a little bit at some point. The new high voltage mode thing coming in the middle of the month.
Well, we could start with that, and then perhaps we can talk a little bit about the new cards and the way the meta looks like. So this new game mode, so Zombies, perhaps you can give us a bit of an overview. How is it different than the last limited game mode, Deadpool's Diner?
So yeah, it's different. I did not like Deadpool's Diner. I was not a fan. I think there were just... Deadpool's Diner didn't iterate on the game, I think, enough to be interesting. And I just wasn't really into the extra doubling. I didn't think it made for a more interesting game. And it kind of sucked when you lost, you got locked out and time gated or money gated, depending on what you wanted to use there. So wasn't a fan of Diner. I thought that was a bit of a misstep in terms of like the first new mode. And it was also limited, right? I think a lot of people were really hoping the first new mode after Conquest was going to be not a limited thing. It was a limited thing. This new one's a limited thing, and I think they're going to be more focused on limited things until we maybe get whatever they do for like draft in like 5 years or however long. But yeah, so limited time thing, high voltage. What is it? It is like Speed Snap, which actually sounds kind of cool to me. So it's going to be available for a week. I want to say it's the 18th or something like that. It's starting somewhere around there. It's going to be there for a week. We don't have all the extensive details, but we learned quite a bit about it. Basically, it's 3-turn games. 3-turn games instead of 6-turn games. No snapping involved whatsoever. And you're going to draw, I believe it's you start with 2 cards in hand. You draw 2 every turn, and you get a random amount of energy. Both you and the opponent get the same random amount. I think it's between 2 and 6 energy a turn. And I believe that will stack. So instead of getting, your 1 energy a turn and it stacks up, I believe that will stack from the little bit of footage we saw in the season trailer. So basically it's just faster snap without the snap mechanic. and you're going to be able to have way, way more energy in those 3 turns. So it's all about the gameplay. It's all about being fast paced, and there are going to be rewards for it. Most of which is just cosmetic stuff, but I think there is we don't know the amount, but there are some like credits and tokens in there too. But the big thing is there is a card in there. I want to say all the all the symbiotes this season, they're all like the names are all like I wouldn't say emotions, but they're like states of being or something. So I kind of get them confused, not gonna lie. I wanna say it's not I wanna say it's agony. I'm gonna double check real quick here. The new card. Agony Marvel Snap. Is that it? Yeah, it is Agony. So Agony is a 1 cost 2 power that reads after you play a card here, merge this with it. And yeah, so it's kind of like an inverse Hulkbuster. So instead of playing it after a card to merge into it, you play Agony first, and then your next card will merge into it. And that's going to be the free card you can get from this mode just by playing it. We don't know if they're going to have something like Deadpool's Diner where there's like a limit to how much you can play, but I think because it's only running for 1 week, and from the little bit of UI we saw, I don't think they're going to limit it. I think they're just going to let people go wild and play this as much as they want. And it looked like, also from the UI, it looks like they're going to have some quests in there specific to it that you can also refresh with gold. So I guess that's their attempt at monetizing it. And yeah, it seems like I think this is a much more interesting concept. I'm more excited for this than I was Deadpool's Diner. Because it's actually an interesting, different take on a way to play the game, which is why I think a lot of people want is like, hey, I like Marvel Snap, but I'm a little bored of like the stuff I'm used to doing.
Yeah.
What are ways we can explore this game in a different way? And I think High Voltage seems like a cool way to do that. Like it presents interesting, different deck building ideas. They said they're restricting magic, so you can't like cheat the game to go longer, which is kind of funny. I don't think they're doing any other cards, but we'll see. But yeah, also another free card is always nice. This card is no Cassandra Nova. I don't think it's going to have some crazy meta impact or whatever, but it does seem like a big Hulkbuster upgrade and like destroy for Deadpool and whatnot. And who knows? Maybe it pops out somewhere else. But it's interesting. I like seeing a new free card. I like seeing a game mode that actually changes the way the game is played. I do wish it was longer than a week, though. A week feels kind of short.
Yeah.
But like Deadpool's Diner was 2 weeks, and I feel like that was a bit better. But it really depends how easy or hard it is to get the rewards. We just don't know. That's the only thing not the only thing, but the main thing I'm concerned about with the shorter length is like you want to give people enough time to get the rewards. And it feels like a kind of thing where they're just trying to like juice the playtime numbers, but I was surprised to hear it's only for 1 week instead of 2. So if you want the free card, you probably want to plan your Snap week around that, because that's 3K tokens of value, because it's going to be a Series 4 release if you do not pick it up during the time the new mode is out.
Yeah.
So I've got a bit of a thought, a question. I think I don't want to misquote our good friend Safety Blade, but I recall Safety Blade saying something early on in Snap's lifespan that, well, if it wasn't for the name, perhaps they'd do away with snapping because it feels like the worst part of the game. And now you've got a Marvel Snap game mode where its monocure Snap is not included.
Interesting, yeah.
And I think that the reason, if I had to guess, and I'm speculating, I actually don't think it's the worst idea in the world. 3 turns, 2 cards, random energy. Like, the variance with respect to that game mode would make snapping feel probably like a real feels bad.
Yeah, it wouldn't feel good. I think
that is exactly what Safety Blade. So Safety Blade confirmed in chat that they claim that snapping's the worst part about Marvel Snap. And well, clearly for this new game mode, they agreed. So no snap in Marvel Snap.
Yeah, curious to see how people react to that. I mean, like, I think the more competitively, quote unquote, minded people like the snap and whatnot. But like I think I definitely would agree that like the gameplay of Snap is far and away more what drives me to it than the doubling down mechanics and whatnot of snapping. But I also think you do kind of need the snap in the general gameplay. Otherwise, it makes a lot of like the bad beats feel a lot worse if you are always losing the same amount rather than being like, oh, I left for 1 or 2. So like I think it is important to the game, but I also agree it's like the weakest part of the game in terms of I think what most people enjoy out of it.
Well, I think moving on, talking about the feels bad, we got a season pass card this month that feels like it has a little bit more teeth than previous pass cards.
Well, that's
Agent,
fitting, right? Venom has a lot of teeth.
I didn't mean the pun.
Mhm.
But I think that this card, um, I mean, Big Bast. I don't know what to call it, but it's got a good stat line. It's got a powerful effect.
Better Bast is what you call
Better
it.
Bast. Yeah. Well, that's okay
Some
because
people run it with Bast though, and
when
some
I
other
get
decks.
my first edition badge for Bast,
It'll all be worth it. Yeah.
yeah, it'll all be worth it. But yeah, Agent Venom kind of immediately making a presence in the meta. Have you guys been playing much of the card, or I'm certain that you've probably been seeing it a fair amount. What are your thoughts on this? I want to compare it to Zabu, but I don't want to engage in that level of hyperbole. But this certainly feels like a far more must-have or higher power level card than we've seen in some time. And the last few have been pretty good. I'm not trying to take anything away, but this just feels like a tier above, if that makes sense.
It's launch Elsa at home, basically. It's not launch Elsa level. The card
Damn.
was better, but it's like it's not that far off. I think it's being like I don't know, it's weird. I feel like although the same thing kind of happened with Elsa a bit when she came out last year, was like I feel like this is a card where people just like the effect enough to be willing to overlook the fact that it's like
And we're
incredibly overstated.
and
Yeah.
in the absolute slim chance that someone is listening to this that does not know Agent Venom's effect, perhaps maybe we could just quickly share what it is. Um, I'll give the honor to someone who's played Marvel Snap this week, as I have not. So Nate, what does this card do? I'm
Oh
gonna quiz
gosh,
you, put you on the spot.
what I think is, so
Quiz.
Agent Venom. So on reveal, set the power of all cards in your deck to 4.
Big Bast.
So yeah, Big Bast
2/4.
definitely. So it's I mean, honestly, I've not played it yet. I have it. I've not used it. I've been playing other stuff because I needed to play in lazy mode for quests. And even then, I've not played a whole lot this month. But it seems really good with Iron Man, and but I've seen a lot of bounce with it. Some
Bounce is insane with this card because
Hit Monkey is pretty gnarly.
it's good with everything in
It's-
Bounce.
it's
Iron
very
Man's
good, yeah.
got to be good with this.
Iron
Like,
Man, Mystique, yeah.
Yep, have played those, played Bounce with it. Haven't actually gone around to trying the legendary Cerebro 4 yet, but it's on the list of things to do. But yeah, this card is just really, really good. It's very easy to build your deck in a way where it's only upside. And a lot of the decks that want to do that were already good.
Yeah.
Like Bounce was already really good. Then you gave them a 2/4 that is making all their other cards in their deck better. It's like, well, okay, if you say so. I remember when this card was first like data mined, and everyone was like, "Nah, it's fake. Like, it's not releasing like that. No way." And now it's out, and now it's a thing. And like, I'll give some credit there, where it's like, even though I think this card is significantly like overly pushed, it hasn't bothered me that much playing against it yet, at least. It's still early on, first week and whatnot.
Yeah.
But I have liked playing it. It's cool. It gave another big boost to Sarah Control, actually, I feel like. Because there's so much bounce around. So now doing like Invisible Woman, Killmonger, Shadow King stuff, really good against all the bounce stuff. And naturally, Agent Venom is just a good card in the Sarah deck because they often aren't running cards that have more than 4 power. So it really, really good with Mysterio. It makes Mysterio into Doctor Doom Light, which is silly.
Yeah.
That is so much value. just getting it off on a bishop, even just 1 point of value on like the hit monkey, like it just adds up a lot.
It's just easy to like. It's such a so one thing about 2-drops that I find is that they kind of they fall into 2 kind of macro categories. The first category is a 2-drop that you play reactively, and typically you're playing it on turn 5 and turn 6. Shadow King would be a good example of that. And then you've got proactive 2-drops that you just want to slam on 2 unconditionally. Jeff is kind of a good example of that.
Yeah.
And, 2-drops that you can just slam on 2 are quite good traditionally, especially when they're on the upper end of the power spectrum. And like just getting a 2/4 on 2, like
why is this card a 2/4? Like,
yeah,
it's an upside there. They
it must be a lore thing because it makes the cards
want 'em to
4
be
and it's a
stronger,
2/4.
and they wanted people to try Cerebro 4 or whatnot. I don't know, but yeah, I'm confused as to why this is a 2/4 when
I don't
like
know.
the effect is so good. Obviously, you can't jam it in any single deck, but the decks you are jamming it in don't really need to be built differently to make it work. Like, they were already functional decks, like Iron Man Darkhawk stuff. Big benefit from this card. The bounce decks, Sarah Control, all these decks are they're just better with this card, and they didn't really have to change how they were built in any meaningful way to make it better.
Right.
Yeah, so I mean, I like the card. It's fun, and the metagame has been decent at keeping it in check to a degree. It's not like it was on Elsa season launch where it was like the Elsa dominated the whole game. Like, there
Yeah.
are a good amount of decks that are not Agent Venom decks that are succeeding, but I think this card is super pushed. And yeah, it's a very strong effect for the decks that want to include it.
Yeah, so before we kind of take a look at the overall view of the meta, there was another card that came out, and yeah, it seems to have made a little bit of a splash. So how has your experience been with Scream?
Scream was the one I was most excited for this month because I like the move your opponent's cards stuff. It's
Like Arrow?
Yeah,
Your
Arrow,
signature card.
obviously.
Mhm.
Arrow, Spider-Man, Polaris, all these like fun cards that haven't really been super relevant in a while. So a card for Scream 2/2, whenever your opponent moves a card, it drains 2. So it drains them, they lose 2, she gains 2. It only triggers once a turn though. So even if you move multiple things, you're only getting that drain on the first move. But you can make a pretty big scaling threat from this while also shrinking your opponent's cards. It does feel like a natural include for this archetype that has fallen by the wayside, and it's revitalized it. A lot of people are trying it, playing it. There are a lot of different versions. Naturally, the one thing most people did was just like, all right, I'm throwing in Kingpin, I'm throwing in Scream, and then I'm throwing in every move your opponent's card. And people did that, and it does work. It can win games. But I think a deck like that isn't super well positioned into the current meta, namely because of like the bounce stuff with Ancient Venom just going taller than it. Some of the decks that are trying to counter that deck being good against it. I don't think that version of the deck is actually the best way to play Scream right now, unfortunately. Although people have shown like it does work. Like, you can do it. It's not unplayable, which is nice. It's nice to see that. But I've found that you definitely have to keep some of those other powerful decks in mind when you're building with Scream. But I've had a lot of fun with it. It's the card I like most out of all the ones that we're releasing this month. But we did get some news about it that really like killed my enthusiasm pretty hard. So like somebody asked on the Snap Discord, hey, Scream hits unflipped cards, but Kingpin doesn't. Why is that? It seems inconsistent. Are you going to update them to both work the same way?
And
They even said in the question, they were like, please don't make Scream not work like this. The funny thing was, the question was actually wrong. Kingpin does work on unrevealed cards. So there's an additional layer of confusion there. But yeah, they both currently work on unflipped cards, and we got a response basically saying, yeah, we think that's unintuitive. We're going to be changing it. And I hate that decision. I think it's a stupid decision. I think the people who make this game have a terrible habit of trying to appeal to the lowest common denominator of player. They are so scared of people being confused when, oh, if you see this interaction once, you understand it. If you're worried about people being confused, it's almost like there's a line of text you put on this card called Juggernaut that says applies to unflipped cards that you could just put on these cards. No problem. It would solve any confusion. But no, instead they'd rather make these cards worse for fear of causing confusion. And I think that is idiotic. I think that the people who make this game just don't want to cater to anyone with more than like 3 brain cells at times. Like it's really, and like there has not been confusion about this. It's just so dumb. And in the example they used, they're like, well, we don't want people getting confused how Hazmat doesn't affect flip down cards, but this does. And it's like, wow, it's almost like Hazmat is a completely different card with a unique text that isn't remotely related to this in any way. And so shockingly, the different card works differently. It's crazy. But it all goes back to I've always thought it was dumb. That was kind of their logic and why they got rid of most cards, but Juggernaut not moving unflipped cards like Arrow. And I've always thought it was dumb. I'll always think it's dumb. And I really wish they'd reconsider that decision. And I think a lot of people are going to be unhappy when they find out that their new card is objectively worse.
Yep.
Because this only affects one card, Juggernaut, right? If you Juggernaut with priority, that's what's getting affected here. So it's not like it's going to throw this card straight into the trash bin or anything, but you're making a card that's already niche and only has like a certain subset of things that synergize with it. There aren't a million move your opponent's cards type things. They're just making it worse because they're so scared of it being unintuitive for the non-card game people. And it's like, I don't know who needs to break the news to them, but like they made a card game. You shouldn't be so afraid of like trying to make it the easiest possible thing because you're scared of somehow making players run off because the one interaction didn't go how they expected. Spoiler alert, Snap has 1 million interactions that are not intuitive in this game.
Yeah,
there are
they
so many other ones.
They change stuff all the time too. And it's like I can not keep track of it.
Remember when they changed how Elsa worked because they said it was unintuitive, and then they were like, "Oh, just kidding. Our change was also unintuitive, so we changed it back." And it's like, come on, man. It's just a little ridiculous, and it really I find it a bit insulting, honestly, to most players' intelligence that they think, well, our players they can't comprehend that this works differently than an on-reveal effect. It's just too much for the average player. It's like
rude.
It just shows a lack of respect for the player base, in my opinion. Like people can figure it out. I promise you, it hasn't been that confusing. And it just I hate it. I absolutely hate it.
I don't know, Zombies. Sounds like elitist card gaming at peak here. You just don't know what the average experience is like from the top of your 1% ivory tower. So I have a couple of people I know in real life who play the game casually. They're free to play. One of them hit Infinite. I've mentioned them a couple times. And I've asked them about these changes over the last year and change, and they are as perplexed about it as we are. I understand the rationale, like from a theoretical perspective, but then when they apply it to these cards, it doesn't really seem to fit with what it is that they are expressing that they're attempting to do. Or perhaps more simply put, the actions don't match the words. They say they want to make the interactions more simple, and then they end up making them almost feel over-engineered and even more confusing. Plus, of course, when the policy is no refunds, that kind of exacerbates when things like this happen, because there's always going to be people that are left not happy with the change, even if it's good or not. And I feel like these mechanic changes are different than balance adjustments. even though it does affect game balance, the rationale for them are a little bit
Yeah,
different.
it's not a
And
balance thing. They're not changing this because it's overpowered. Like,
Right.
it's definitely not.
So that makes it a little more frustrating, I think, because it's like,
Yeah.
why are you touching my thing? Like, it's not doing the broken. Like, leave it alone. I get that sentiment.
Yeah.
Yep, that's definitely how I feel about it. It's like, why are you just making it worse? Why are you going out of your way to just make it worse? And like, there's no upside. It's purely downside. And I promise you, the people they're changing this for aren't going to even appreciate that upside. Like, it's going to be the exact same card to them. It's just, it's very disappointing. And I think this is one of the biggest things over time that has frustrated me with Marvel Snap is like they go out of their way to make it so painfully clear that like their number one priority is not people who care about card games. And it's like, then why'd you make a card game? How about you go make another game?
Then let me ask you this: what do these changes then tell you who they're making it for? Because I can't quite figure that out. Like, I mean, you can be cynical about things like monetization and changes and like philosophy in terms of the game economy, but like just changing cards because you want to make them simpler to understand and make them more complex or just differently complex. Who's that for?
I think it's for who they're making this game for, which is like I think they have a mindset of the card game people are going to show up anyway, and it's a niche. And so if we want to be the biggest game we can be, we need to appeal to the average mobile gamer who
How does
doesn't
this
give a crap
appeal?
about
How does
card
this
games.
appeal to the mobile gamer though? I just don't get it.
Because it's fast. There's no limit on the amount of games you can play, and you can collect your fancy little characters and variants.
Oh, okay. I meant specifically the changes to Scream, but
Oh, there I think there's a thought that when a casual player runs into an interaction they don't understand or they think works one way and then it works another way, it creates a level of friction. And then if that happens enough times, I think their thought would be, okay, then maybe some of these people just fall off the game. Maybe the third thing that doesn't work how they thought it would, they're like, all right, I lost because of this. I'm frustrated. I'm done with this game. And I mean, I can't speak to if that actually happens or not. I have no idea. I'm not a game developer. But I think that is the logic being used. Is like they're very much trying to. That's why they care so much about this. The I word, intuitive, is they want things to work how people think it's going to work. And it's just like, but that's fine. You want your game to be intuitive and understandable. But where I have a problem is when that starts getting rid of complexity that adds depth and interesting interactions to the gameplay. I think that's just worse. I think you're making a worse game.
Well, especially in a game with no refunds, right? Like we buy the card and then they're going to change the card and like, oh yeah, sorry.
Yeah, that's
it
the thing.
intuitive.
It's like,
no refunds.
People won't. I don't think this change is going to be appreciated at all by the people it's being aimed towards.
It's actually brilliant in chat, Mr. Kerfuffle. No one will appreciate this change, but a whole lot of people will hate it. I mean,
yeah, that's exactly what I said, and
it's what we call a lose-lose in the biz.
Yeah.
I wrote a strongly worded message about how they should really reconsider this change because you're going to make a lot of people upset who bought this card and now have a worse card.
Yeah.
And you're not actually making anyone happy with the change. You're just making the game worse. There's a pattern of them doing this, and I'm sure they're going to continue to do it, and it sucks. I just strongly dislike their approach when it comes to things like this. I think they're way too scared over things that are confusing when, like, there are so many weird, niche, confusing interactions between cards and locations that exist in this game. Like, if you're going to have why are those not a priority, but getting rid of this one on this brand new card is? Couldn't tell you.
And I want to really, like, the segue almost, like, kind of like it wrote itself, but I'm not going to use it. But like we wanted to talk about the changes that were discovered with respect to split. So speaking of changes that are not appreciated, but that would take us off topic. I do want to just kind of give a little bit of an overview of the meta, because I think that part of the discourse that's kind of being undertaken by engaged members of the Snap community is that despite the fact that these 2 new cards are powerful and have made a splash, the kind of the pillars of the meta haven't really changed a whole lot. So people are not really enjoying the game because despite the frequent balance changes and the OTAs to try and drive game variety, whether you agree with that or not, it feels like it hasn't really had that effect. So, kind of looking at our screen, we're looking at top 2,000 or a little bit less than 2,000 infinite since season reset last Tuesday. So today is October 6th. Sunday, the season reset on October 1st. So this is effectively 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.5 days of data, which is not like the biggest sample, but it's chunky enough that I think it warrants discussion.
Gives you an idea, and I think it's pretty accurate too.
Yeah, so if we look, I'm not going to go through the decks and tiers. We're displaying the infograph on Untapped on the screen, but I think that the decks that you're seeing a lot of are decks that are running the season pass card with Agent Venom, seeing about 9% of play. I think what's really interesting is that the play rate's always high for the season pass card, but the win rate here is very high. So it's 53.6 in top 2,000 infinite. That's probably the highest win rate deck. No, there's one other deck that has 0.2% on it, effectively tied.
And move is 1.1% more too.
Oh yeah, is it? All right. So Hella and Move are also amongst the higher win rate decks. Bounce is seeing a high play rate and a little bit of a depressed win rate because I think that it's being targeted, and traditionally people don't necessarily. It is, a little like on the snap like the snap scale on the trickier side to play. But I always get frustrated playing Bounce. It's one of my favorites because when you hard target Bounce, it feels so bad.
Yeah.
It dies to pretty hard.
High play rate, high win rate. Darkhawk, the same. So Clog. So it's like Clog, Arishem, Hella, Surfer. I understand that these are kind of like mainstays of the game. I do think that I don't think anyone's necessarily upset to see that Surfer is particularly good, but I do think that Hella, Clog, and Arishem are decks that people...
It's a mean
trifecta. So probably out of one of those 3 decks, you really don't like facing them. Or perhaps all of them. Like for me, of those 3, the one that I always get frustrated with is Clog. Because again, I like bounce decks, and I like decks that kind of flood. And so when I start getting clogged, well, what do? I just go back to playing Arishem, So it's like, and I know you zombies, you said before the show started, like Arishem, you hate it more than Loki, and like I feel like your hatred for Loki is a little bit of a meme. Like everyone gets frustrated with Hella. I don't know. So I think it's less the fact that like the decks like haven't changed much. I think it's just that there's a lot of decks that people don't like that are kind of still around. Arishem has been pretty resilient despite getting a lot of nerfs. And Hella, no one was happy to see that come back, but Hellcow just kind of made it a thing.
I think some people were happy about Hella, but I think the bias for Hella is I think the people who play the game the most hate Hella the most because it's very simple.
Hella came back, Buddy and Husky.
The average snapper, Blue, the person they make this game for is happy Hella came back. Also, the new player is happy because Hella is the most budget friendly deck in the game. one
That
Series
might be
5
true.
card in the whole deck, which you can replace in Blink. So, like, that's my one thing in defense of Hella. I don't like playing against Hella.
Shem and Hella, like it's free to play friendly.
Hell is what I play when I don't want to use my brain. It's great.
Yeah, and I think there's a big appeal towards that with a lot of players who just want to like watch the funny number happen.
I'm not
and it's, like,
defending
cool.
it. It's just it's the brain, like it does the stupid thing when you draw right, and
It's the casino deck. It's
Hey, look, I've played so much Arishem, and if I was saying before the show started, when I do finally do my climb, which I will, or I don't know if I'll hit Infinite this month. I've got a lot going on, so I'm taking a little bit of a break from Snap. Not for any of the reasons we're talking about, just because unfortunately IRL is being a cruel taskmaster. But when I do finally get to sit down and play, I'm probably going to play Arishem because, I'm going to have to climb, and it's just a very kind of resilient deck, and I don't want to have to use my brain as much as, other decks might demand. So I get it.
Yeah, it's like I also think part of it's like a lot of these decks have been around for a long time, which is like fine. But I do think it makes things like a little boring when it's like the same decks that have been around for forever. But that feels like that's more of a problem with, you don't want to really like nuke or delete these decks because they aren't really overpowered, at least from what it looks like on the stats side. I think it's just like the classic Snap problem rearing its ugly head again of like, releasing, one card a week only has so much of a dramatic impact on the game, and like one card isn't creating a new archetype very often, and then when it does, it's often way over pushed, like Arsham on release, High Evo on release, those types of things. So it's like, I think it all, as usual, comes down to like the unique acquisition system of the game, and also people aren't engaging with the releases every week because it's expensive to do that. So naturally people are going to stick to, the decks that they have or their favorite decks, because most people don't have the luxury of getting all 4 cards in the month and being able to test them in all these different or new decks or things like that. So I think it naturally leads to a more of the same and whatnot. And the balance changes also they haven't been super nerf heavy in the last month or so. They've been doing more buffs than nerfs and whatnot, which I think that's fine. But yeah, everything's just been kind of, I feel like Agent Venom and Scream added some new things to try. But really since the patch where Hellcow got changed, the game hasn't changed too dramatically, it feels
All
like.
right, so I want to I'm taking us off topic for a second, but I think that this is actually really topical right now. So I mentioned I haven't played Snap yet this month because of IRL, and I think that the person. So to your comment that the decks haven't changed much, someone will always say, "Well, zombies, just take a break if you're not having fun. If you take a break, that's good." Except there's just a problem. Taking a break in Marvel Snap is a very costly decision. It's not like other card games where you can take that break and come back refreshed. If you take that break, as I am right now, I'm going to be penalized for it. So I'm still going to get the season pass card because it's good value. But if I take 2-3 weeks off, I'm not going to be able to complete the season pass. So if I want the variant, I'm going to have to spend gold. Or what if I just take the month off? Then I'll miss the card completely, and boom, another Series 5 card. So, this whole notion that, like, go ahead and take a break. Well, I mean, sure.
The model doesn't support it.
Yeah, like, I wish that I could be that person, actually you right now, and say that, and be the project, like, well, I'm taking a break. Well, I don't really want to take a break, but, like, I'm worried
break
about
from the
what that
gameplay,
break is gonna. Yeah,
you don't want to break from like what that costs you, because the game, if you're not getting the bare minimum of like the free resources, you fall so far behind. And I think anyone who's done content on this game can tell you how many times they've seen the cycle of, someone pops into chat and they're like, "Hey, I played this game like on launch and I stopped and I decided to come back after all these months. Do you have any recommendations?" And you try and give them some general advice. But within the next few days, you very quickly see the person realizes, "Oh, I can't engage with these new releases because when I quit, I didn't have any keys, or maybe I had one key or two key or something. So I can't really engage with new releases very much if I'm not spending a bunch of money." And when they quit, usually it's because they either didn't like the meta or maybe they were just bored of the stuff they were playing. And there's nothing new to really come back to if you can't engage with a lot of the new releases or releases that happened while you were away. So yeah, the spotlight weeks may be better for you because you're missing more cards, but that only matters if you actually stick around and have enough keys to use them.
I don't honestly, like, that whole argument is so abstract. Like, I mean, like, yes, like, quantifiably that's true, but qualitatively the experience is so uneven. And even still, like, I don't want to get into that can of worms, but I don't think that's actually, like, if I take a month off, the spotlight system is not going to be the thing that's going to be the equalizer. There's
No.
only one card that will be the equalizer, and we know which card that is.
Yeah, the credit card.
The credit card.
And maybe that's the intent, right? Is like they only want people coming back who are willing to spend a bunch of money. I don't know. They've said they know the returning player stuff needs to be better, and there is something they added which I thought was kind of funny. I saw someone who came back and they did something where they were giving people like some resources and 3K credits or 3K tokens, and some stuff. Not everyone seemed to get that. I don't know what determined that. And then the other thing was they had like I saw some people were getting like, it was a $20 bundle and it had one of the newer Series 5 cards. So I think it had Copycat like a week or two after she came out or something. So like that's significantly better, but also you're like, that's not really helping them unless they're buying it, right? Like you're not helping the people who are unsure if they actually want to come back to the game. Like they're not going to just throw $20 and then realize, oh wait, I'm not actually that interested. So there needs to be some way to let people have time off with this game, I feel like, and they seem very reluctant to do that because that's what works in other card games. That's literally how it works in Hearthstone and Magic and all these other card games is people come around for, the big set release, and then they usually don't stick around playing through the whole time till the next set. At some point they've had their fill, whether they dislike the meta or they've just had their fun and they just don't feel like playing it anymore. They wait for the next one, and then a lot of people come back for the next one, or sometimes people will skip one and then come back later. But it's possible to come back. Like you are going to probably want to spend money to catch back up, but having seen someone who quit for a while and now is spending a lot of money to catch back up and Snap, it's an endless pit, man. It is a bottomless pit. The person I've been doing some coaching with.
Okay.
They quit for a while. They quit for a number of months, and so now they've been trying to get all the cards each week and catching up on the cards they missed. And even as someone who's willing to spend a lot of money, it not only takes a lot of money, but it takes a lot of time too. They've been waiting for Red Guardian to show up in their shop for like a week or something because they have all these other cards they're missing, and it's just like the game makes for a very frustrating experience to come back to. And that can be if you're someone who's willing to spend money. Like if you're not willing to spend money, it's like 10 times worse. And so, or if you're just willing to be a pass only player, it's just such a worse experience coming back to the game. And I think that's one of the biggest problems Snap has is like once you're out, you're out for a lot of people. Like you're not coming back.
I'm scared that I don't want to be out. Like I want to have the option to. I don't want like zero sum absolutism to be, because I decided to take a few weeks off because life is throwing me a few curveballs. Like I mean.
Dude, how long did it take when you were missing the last time you skipped a card? I don't even remember what it was anymore. There was one that you were looking for forever, and I don't. It was one of the recent.
Was it Gladiator?
Ones, maybe.
Oh, pass card. I never skipped a pass card.
No, I'm sorry, not a pass card. I mean, it was a. Yeah, it might have been Gladiator. Might have been.
I think it was Gladiator, where nobody.
It was annoyed that I skipped Gladiator, and actually, I changed the way that I engaged with the game after that because, like, basically, the way that I engage with the game, although that's going to have to change if I take a couple weeks off, which is really ridiculous to kind of quantify it that way. But basically, when a card would come out that I wanted, I would use keys on it no matter what. Always would use keys. And the tokens became exclusively my contingency fund of regret. So if I skipped a card that I regretted skipping, I would have the tokens to get it. And so I would take more chances in skipping cards that I thought would be bad or I wouldn't like. The last card that I got with my Emergo fund of tokens was actually Ajax, because I wasn't convinced that Ajax was going to be great, and I'm not a real fan of the Affliction kind of archetype. But then when Ajax started appearing in decks that I do like Sarah Control and Bounce, because it made it for such a flexible game style, I was like, oh crap, I missed that. But that's okay, because I always have enough tokens in the tank to take that chance. Here's the thing, like, come on, like, do people, I don't know, maybe this is what you were saying before about card gamers, but do people find that fun? I don't. I find that ridiculous.
It's
like, I have to
miserable.
flow
Frustrate to pay. Free F2P. Frustrate to pay. That's the model, right? They want there's a certain level of, it's about balancing like a needle on how much they can frustrate you without like scaring you off, but getting you to pay money. And like every free to play game's like that, but I do think Snaps can be method of it can be particularly frustrating, especially with how like quickly the game changes. Like I think this has been one of the more stable months where the OTAs haven't totally flipped the game on its head or anything. They've been relatively minor. I think the card releases have been more impactful, but even then you still have a lot of like old time decks sticking around and whatnot. But yeah, it's just I think a very frustrating model. And I know for me, I think like it's cool you have like, as someone who does get to engage with the majority of the new cards, like it's cool you have a new card every week, but especially now after going back and trying some new, more traditional card game focused games, I prefer that model. Like,
I wonder what
do.
that is.
Yeah, I know. Definitely not one we're going to talk about.
We're not going to talk about it at all, because this is a snap-based podcast.
We do have to talk about the splits though before we get there. We forgot. We got sidetracked. We got a little sidetracked. And the splits thing is worth talking about. That is a big issue.
Yeah, definitely. There's the other natural segue we're going to abstain on indulging in, because a big topic. So this one, I think, I don't like to jump on the outrage wagon so much, but I think this one, I don't know. I'm not angry, but I'm frustrated. So what has happened? So a little while ago, we got a really cool patch where they improved some of the card effects, like prism and foil, and the weird ones that no one uses except for Nate.
The free to play ones.
Yeah, well, I mean, they improve them.
The foil ones. We got the prism now. Yeah.
Yeah, they made prism. They improved some of the secondary effects. It definitely felt like they were laying the groundwork for more split stuff in the future.
Yeah, except that there was a change that affects the core game experience, which is upgrading card effects, and they basically nerfed the odds of getting an ink and a gold card and a crackle. And because so most people chase for what they call god splits, which is generally when you get a card that is either inked or gold with a crackle. And some people will even take it further, that the crackle effect has to be flattering to the card, which is fine. The odds of those are even lower, because it's like a chance, right? Like the low percentages are multiplicative. So like the odds of getting both a crackle and an inked are really low. And now they're even lower. And people have been kind of talking about this for a little while, noting that they've been getting these types of splits less often, including a class of Marvel Snap gamer that I affectionately refer to as the split whale, basically someone that invests money in the game specifically to get these splits. And yeah, they nerfed the splits, and people aren't too happy because
And
well,
nobody knew. Like we never.
there was no
this-
announcement or no communication or no. It was like,
And they
yeah,
might not even
Yeah.
know, for all we know.
well,
There's been no communication on this issue to clarify. They've said
that would be
nothing.
a giga yikes if they don't know. But if it was
It
a bug,
wouldn't surprise me if they don't know, like,
well, but
because
they're
I
not going
mean,
to compensate people for it if it was a mistake, or at least
I
not.
doubt they will.
Maybe
But
they'll
yeah,
compensate Chase because, like, just to kind of get him to, because he's like, it's kind of like the casino that flies people in on a helicopter. But like, I don't know. The whole thing. I think that my issue with this is less that the percentages have changed. But this is just another example of lack of transparency and something that is, well,
yeah,
it
we've
breaks
never even
trust.
had the rates. This is the thing that I find super annoying. They never even gave us the rates. There should be rates in this game. If people are gonna be spending money on resources to essentially gamble for getting like these cool cosmetic versions of their favorite cards and variants, it should be in game.
Yeah.
Like most of these type of things, they tell you. They're often legally required to tell you, like, hey, these are your odds. Like this is the chance of things happening. And we've never gotten any real communication on this. The only post we ever got officially acknowledging inked percentage chance, which is what people have gone off of for forever, was back in beta. One of the developers said, oh, inked is 10% on split 4. And then I think at some point someone saw in the files somewhere that gold was also listed as that 10%. But it's never actually been 10%. It's, as we can see here, it was actually closer to what, 23.5%. So it was actually significantly better. But that doesn't, like, and you could say, well, it's still higher than 10%. So is it really that much of a problem? And it's like, yes, it is still a problem because the previous percentage is what we've had for literally the entirety of the game. So when
Over
you
2
suddenly
years, yeah.
when you suddenly cut that by 7%, pretty big number, you don't tell anyone, and you have these split whales or just even regular players who are spending money on credits. The end game of Marvel Snap, and they've said this themselves, is it's to like chase the cosmetics and customize your favorite cards. And like that's their whole end game experience of Snap, is getting people hooked on the cosmetic side. And they make a lot of money from it. And so now, if it's costing people more money on average to get the same things they were getting before, that raises some real red flags when that wasn't communicated at all. So, like, if this was intentional, it's crazy that it wasn't communicated. And if it's not intentional, it's crazy that this apparently happened on August 20th, and we're just now getting around to like having enough data to look at it. Because from
Well,
my
it's
perspective,
hard, right? It's hard to like to really quantify it. But
Yeah.
to
I
Lauren,
don't think it's that hard. Like if you
well,
think
if you
about it.
if you want to get a significant sample,
Oh yeah, no, that is challenging, and that's why it took time for this to happen. And that's why if we didn't have someone in the community like Lauren who wanted to look
Yeah.
through, I think
Yeah.
the analysis was like over 30,000 splits.
oh yeah,
Like it's a
it
very
was-
large sample. When I saw people saying, "Oh, I'm getting worse rates," naturally my assumption is like, "Oh, you're having bad luck. I've had bad luck too. It happens."
Sure, yeah,
Like
yeah.
it's all small sample size. No one player generally has enough sample size to really prove something most of the time because like variance is a thing. But when you look at samples that large, you start running out of the, oh, it's just variance defense. And then it becomes, oh, they should probably really look into this. And I mean, this came out, I think, on Friday. So we haven't heard anything. I would imagine that we will hear something next week though, because yeah, this is quite a conundrum.
Well, and like any time that something happens that's kind of like, not good with respect to the perception of the game.
People
Out-
assume the worst because there've been a lot of negative things that have happened.
Yeah.
That's the thing. If it is a bug, a lot of people are going to assume it's intentional because they have
I
a
think
negative framing of second
think
dinner
it's-
from one
I mean,
reason or another.
I think it's intentional. I mean, I'll just say it. Like I think that I think that it was intentional, and I think that they're going to have to reconcile it. But I think what I find more frustrating than the lack of transparency with respect to these things is the reaction of some of the highly invested people in the game itself. And I don't want to spend too much time on this, but like, you know, I think that like this notion that like the deleting of comments on the official Discord because it kind of runs counter to like the approved narrative really is I I use the word to describe it, and I again I feel bad, but I do feel strongly about this. Like it's aggressive obsequiousness. Like it's like the fan like, oh well, the rates were always higher, so they lowered them, but they're still higher than they were when they weren't communicated. So it's totally fine. And it's like, can't you just acknowledge like they made a change? They weren't transparent about it. It feels bad. People are unhappy. You can try and intellectualize it if you want, but don't tell people how they should feel.
I think,
Especially when
just think of the economy. The economy can't support the.
Won't somebody please think of the economy? Remember when there was, you know what this reminds me of? You remember when there was that bug where it was like, I want to say it was when they added you could spend gold to pay for boosters to like continuous split. There was a bug where the game was like automatically doing that for some people because of like a desync issue. And so people would log in and they'd notice like they were down gold, and that gold was spent on like splitting a card they weren't trying to do that on. They weren't trying to spend that gold for boosters. And that was really kind of getting pushed under the rug for a while. Like it just wasn't really, it didn't seem to be taken seriously. And then like, I don't know, a month, 2 months, however long later, they're like, okay, yeah, this is a real thing. That's our bad guys. And that's a bit why I'm more in the camp of, I wouldn't be surprised if this is a bug. Because I've heard through one of the data miners, when they pushed this update, it changed a lot of stuff on the back end with how splits work, presumably because of all these like data mine splits that are coming later on in the game, that we've seen through like data mine images and whatnot.
The space one, yeah, all that stuff.
It's one of those things where for now at least, I'm in the not assuming malice, just assuming incompetence, that someone changed something they shouldn't have, or there was a ripple effect and it had a change on the inked or gold. Now, would I be surprised if it was the other way? No, I wouldn't be super surprised. But I would think that they would have at least some sense to not do something that like obviously negative.
Regardless, so I think that I'm interested to see what the response is going to be, regardless.
We're all interested. Don't split your cards though. If you're going for a split, just save your credits. Like don't split things until they fix this. If you care about that stuff.
So we're all curious what the response is going to be. So here's my first question for you both. Do you think there's actually going to be a response? Do you think they're going to acknowledge this, or they're going to try and like not address it and kind of let it slide? Do you think there's going to be do you think the initial response will be no response?
No, I think they have to address this. I think this is a big snowball of an issue, and especially when it comes to like rates on things like this, and I mean just the lack of advertising the rates and changing the rates. I'm not a lawyer, but I imagine there's some legally murky waters there when you're just changing things that people are paying money for with like a respect, with an outcome that they have been used to, and then suddenly changing that and not saying anything and charging the same rates. Like it feels like there's room for problematic things to happen there.
Okay, so then, fair enough. Nate, do you think there's going to be a response? And for those that don't know, Nate is
this is not legal advice.
Not legal advice, but just talking head commentary. What's your thought on that, Nate? Do you think there will be a response for the reasons that Zombie said?
Yes, but I think like we've seen, right? I think the only reason there's going to be a response is because somebody noticed and brought it to their attention, and now they're like, oh, now we have to deal with this. And I think, you know, if there's a couple of complainers in the Discord, like whatever, but when you get big creators, especially like Lauren or whoever that really highlight this and it gets widely known enough, I think it gets to a point now where they can't say nothing. But I feel
the
like
funny thing is, like, nobody, maybe not nobody, but I can't speak to live streams at least because I don't watch enough Snap streams. But at least on the YouTube side, it's so rare people talk about this stuff. That's kind of where I've carved my niche a bit, is being like the news person to tell people about things like this happening, because nobody does it. Like when there was the stuff going on with Deadpool's Diner, that was not covered very much. The split thing, maybe someone's covered it, but I haven't seen it. I put up a video about it yesterday, and it's chilling at like just under 4K views.
Nice.
So some people are aware, but
ZombiesGoNomNom, the only thing that makes us be a credible voice.
Right.
yeah, I'm that hard-hitting Snap journalist.
Yeah. So yeah, sorry, I just had to
But people
pump you
don't
up.
talk about it very much.
So I do think, speaking of hard-hitting Snap journalism,
They're crap, mega crap.
needs pictures of Spider-Man. I do think that so it's not my specialty at all, and I really don't know the answer without looking deeper into it. But if there's a gotcha element, right, where it's like there's a percentage that you'll get XYZ if you pay money, like I believe that you're supposed to disclose what those rates are, because the idea is that the consumer should know what the risks are versus the rewards. Like,
yeah,
you know, at least know what the percentage base is. And that's why typically, like with a Hearthstone or whatever, you say like, oh, what is the chance you're going to pull a legendary? Oh, 1 out of 40 packs. Okay.
Yeah, they all have a rate that
Like
they publicly
it doesn't have to
disclose.
be, you know, they've generally there is something there when it's like a pull rate. Now this is a little bit different because you've already got the card and you're splitting it. But
yeah, so it's like you're buying the credits and you're not directly buying the splits, I think is where you can make like an argument against it. But then you could just say, well, if the purpose of me buying the credits is to use them for these pulls on this essentially slot machine, and the slot machine odds are suddenly worse and you don't say anything, it's like is it really that different? And that would probably, you know, be determined on the country you're in, and
it's an argument.
the legal system, but it's
Yeah,
not good. It's not good.
I think we can agree on
At
that.
the worst case, it's a very bad look, if nothing else, and it's going to discourage people from splitting cards, and from, if this was an intentional thing, it's going to super discourage people from like taking anything the company says at face value, which I think a lot of people already don't. That's why
I don't.
I do
mean,
think
like,
it's. I see people in chat saying it's illegal. It's not like, but I think that you have a really good point. I think that the legality of it, and again, I'm not, you know, I'm not sure what it is in different countries, but I think Zombies, you had a really good point where if it's like a pull rate per card, like, yeah, you have to disclose, but here the argument is like, no, you're not buying these, you're buying credits, and you're going to then go use those credits to split cards, whatever. But like, you're not paying. If you paid money to split the cards, then I'm sure they'd have to disclose. But you're
and
not,
that's
but
they
you're
do
not
kind
paying,
of let you though, right, with gold, because you can use gold to split cards too.
yeah.
So
But
I don't know, it's
that
murky.
same argument, right? Where like you pay money for the gold, then you do whatever.
Yeah.
You could do whatever you want with gold. You could buy variants for gold. So like,
Yeah,
you know,
and you're getting collection level progress. So it's
But you could argue. I mean, I have to say, at the end of the day, like, to me, it's shady and it's crappy. When I look at this, my like sincere thought is it's unintentional, because what happened was, here's the rate and it's based off of whatever probability, based on the existing. You know, you have foil and you have black and white and you have, or inked, right? You've got gold, you've got whatever else, right? And then you like, oops. So what are my percentage chances to get one of these things? And then they introduced a new one. So now I've got Prism.
well, they didn't even make a new one. They just changed how the old one looked.
Well, you've got foil and Prism now separately though, right? And so
They were always
So
separate.
they just changed how Prism looked.
Oh, well.
You always had foil and Prism. You just used to not be able to tell them apart. Well.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, that explains it then. Yeah, so I don't know. It's tricky. My thought, I didn't realize that. So if I thought, hey, if they're introducing a new one, it probably skewed,
Then it can mess with the odds,
skewed all the rates, right? But if Maybe
I think they probably were just changing stuff on the back end
it's
to
spaghetti.
eventually get ready for these other new splits or whatever.
Yeah.
And something probably got changed there, either intentionally or unintentionally. And regardless of the intent or not, it's bad. The better outcome would be, well, this was unintentional, but that still doesn't make it like a good outcome, right? If they accidentally did this and then they, with all their infinite more data than we have or Lauren has or anyone has, didn't notice it, it's like, come on, guys, like don't be asleep at the wheel.
Just think of the economy. The economy cannot
Yeah.
support your like
The economy
easy splitting
cannot
cards.
support your split habits at 23.5%. We've got to lower them. You know, we're instead of hiking rates, we're cutting them, but not in a positive way.
Well, no, way back when we said it was 10%, and then we realized it was actually 23. That's not fair to us. We have to lower it back to what we told you it was, and that's fair to you guys too.
It's not even what they told us it was either. It's just a mess. It's just a big mess, and I hope they can figure out a way to, I don't know, revert it and make sure that people are aware of what's going on. And if nothing else, please let this result in just giving us the percentage in game. It's silly that it's never been given in game. It really is stupid. Like there's really no good reason I can think of for them to obscure that.
It'd be kind of nice if they made a mistake in our favor every once in a while.
Yeah, well, you do get those once in a blue moon, but they are.
That's why I tell you what.
Between.
That's why everybody is so quick to exploit when there's like a bug.
Oh yeah, 100%.
They happen so infrequently. It's like, oh
when
man,
they do happen, people benefit, and there's a precedent of that. And so yeah, abuse bugs when you can.
Yeah, because the economy's so trash that like you have to when you get the chance, like you do it quick before it goes away.
Yeah, like when Spotlights first came out, the double dipping, that saved me a ton of money.
Yeah, that was wild. That'll never happen. You're going right to the greatest hits of exploitation.
Yeah, that was the
right?
greatest hits of exploiting. Right?
That was yeah, I remember that.
Even
very clearly.
I didn't take quite as much advantage as you did, but like even like if you like got in on the margins, you made out like a bandit. It was freaking awesome.
Yeah, we got the insider trading info on that one. Like
yeah.
people theorized it, and then the theory worked, and so it spread. The funny thing is, like they even said, like it was such a relatively small amount of players that actually got to take advantage of it.
And then they tried to make us feel bad about it. They were like,
deal
"Oh, shame on those people who did it."
It's like, well, shame on you for not having like a standard, updating system for your game. Like,
do you remember they posted in the Discord? They posted in the Discord like,
yeah, give everyone one or take away one gold.
Remember,
no, it was like give something.
Yeah, they were like, we know all the people who exploited.
Yeah, we have a list, Tucker's list.
Yeah, it's like, yeah.
I mean, I think it was said in jest, but it was just funny to. That was a whole situation, but yeah, hopefully this gets resolved. It's not great. If you care about getting cool splits, you should hold off on splitting them until this gets addressed, because otherwise you're just having worse odds.
Well,
anyways, yeah, moving right along. Yeah,
that was just the fun part of the show.
Well, so I want to just kind of preface by saying that I think that we've reached the end of the snap portion of the show. Although the next topic we are going to be talking about snap quite a bit, in that there's a lot of point of comparisons, but on the subject of not a lot of players getting to experience this, the Born to be Cosmo leadership team found enough money to scrape together to send ZombiesGoNomNom, NateWolfeTCG, and me, Blutrane, to New Zealand. We're in New Zealand right now. Yeah. We just have blue screens of our backgrounds so that, or green screens of our backgrounds, rather, excuse me, so that, there's show continuity. But I'm right now chilling in Auckland. And the reason that we went to New Zealand was we wanted to get in on the limited release soft launch of Pokemon TCG Pocket. And I think that for us three, the reason that we were really excited to try Pokemon TCG Pocket is not only because we love Pokemon. Everybody knows me by Pikachu or Snorlax, and I mean, Zombies, you've streamed playthroughs of Pokemon games, like the mainline games. And for those that don't know, Nate has quite a history with the Pokemon TCG, and Nate's son. I don't know if they still play, but you used to go to tournaments.
Yeah, not quite as much as we used to. The game, it's like, it's not as expensive as Magic, but it's right
It's
up
not
there.
cheap.
I mean, to build a competitive deck, when I was playing in tournaments, my deck cost $300 or something like that. I mean, it's absurd, and it
300
was like,
US. I know that it's 300 for you, but that's like 450 for me. So it scales. Yeah, so we're really excited about this game. But the other reason that we're really excited about it is because I think one of the things that we all really like about Marvel Snap is the emphasis on quick games.
yeah.
And
the older
honestly,
I get.
the whole collecting part of it on some level appeals to us too. We just wish that it wasn't done in such a way that we kind of beat that horse to death with before. But it is not. I don't think it's a stretch to say that Pokemon TCG Pocket is an attempt to cash in on this new market that Marvel Snap has created. And it's soft launched in New Zealand. It's developed by DNA. They're involved in, I believe, Pokemon Masters EX and some other games. It has nothing to do with Pokemon TCG Live, both in terms of gameplay, economy, mechanics, and development. And I mean, basically, I'm hooked. It's I think that the game was really well scaled down to make the games quick. Although, as Zombies has noted, they don't quite feel as quick as Snap, but they're still pretty quick. And I think the other thing that I'll just kind of put it out there right now is that this is a much simpler game than Marvel Snap.
Oh yeah.
It is. Snap can be tricky, especially with all these cards that have come out, that have introduced all these mechanics. Maybe TCG Pocket will get more complicated over time, but right now it feels really basic, but lots of fun. And just saying, we're not making any official announcement, but given how invested Zombies and I are in the game and that we're enjoying it, we've been playing it a lot. If there's interest, or maybe if there isn't, we don't care. We're gonna have a third podcast to add to the Born to Be Wild family of podcasts. You're gonna have your own podcast network,
We have
Nate.
our
How do you
own
feel about that?
I mean,
universe.
Yeah. Born to be Snorlax, and like I want the logo to be like the Born to Be Wild logo with Cosmo
Wait.
postered over it.
I
with
made
Snorlax.
it already. Wait, I did
You
it.
made it already?
You
You did it?
Well, not really.
Oh my
but,
God.
But like, wait, I'll show you. Wait, hold
Oh,
on. Where is it?
I okay. This is not scripted. I was not expecting
Where
this.
is it? Hold on. I put it in here. It's one of.
Oh, I'm so excited.
Where is it? No, I didn't really do anything, but it's
Yeah,
oh,
this is
there
when
it is.
Nate's
It's gonna look just like that.
Perfect. It's
I
so
just have
perfect.
To, I just have to fix the text, right?
That's
Yeah.
so good.
That's
That's so cursed. Oh my God! And then you'll like have Snorlax papered over Cosmo.
Yeah.
Oh man, I love it. It's great.
like it a
It's
lot.
so bad.
Yeah,
It's so
it's
bad.
so good. For those that may not understand the joke, when we first did Born to Be Cosmo, it wasn't really, we weren't planning on it being a regular thing. So I just took the Born to Be Wild logo and I just basically in Microsoft Paint put Cosmo's head over the Born to Be Wild logo, which is this really awesome dragon that was custom made for the show, as well as all the emotes in this channel. Yeah, and we just kind of stuck with it. Nate cleaned it up, obviously, because it probably was triggering you that I just used MS Paint.
It was. I have it somewhere. I'll find it.
The original.
While
I mean,
you're
you just go
talking.
back on the YouTube channel and just look at the second video or whatever, and it'll be there. Because But yeah, so I think that we're probably gonna do the same thing, kind of do an episode of Born to Be Snorlax when there's something to talk about. I think that we're gonna like use this slot just to talk a little bit about our impression of the game and whatnot, but I think that there's enough there to talk about. But I do think that like as much as we think of this as a snap competitor, I think people kind of calling it a snap killer is really
It's just what gamers do, man. It's just what
yeah, I
gamers
know.
do.
I mean, I think that because like a lot of people play Snap for the same reason they're playing this game, the IP. Like for
Mhm.
me,
It's huge.
I don't
Yep.
I don't care about I don't care. I don't have a strong connection to the Snap IP, but I do with Pokemon. But I think that like the people that play Snap and like ladder grind and are really competitive, I don't think they're gonna find a very compelling product with Pokemon TCG Pocket. There isn't even ranked ladder, but I think that like it's a less spiky game, and I think that they can definitely coexist. And I hope, if nothing else, it will maybe
Competition.
yeah,
That's what is needed.
or inspiration, right? You
Yeah.
know, they see something that Pocket's doing, they're like, oh, that's cool, we can do that. You know, so
I don't know if that's gonna happen.
Well,
Because just mainly because the games are so different in terms of their acquisition model and gameplay. Like the big takeaway that I think is important to make clear is like the gameplay of Snap and the gameplay of Pokemon are drastically different. Pokemon is not trying to be Snap. Snap is not trying to be Pokemon. Very
but
different games.
they cater to very similar audiences though, and
The speed of it caters to the same group of people, and they both are coasting. Like they're both good games that are severely elevated because of the power of the intellectual properties they're leveraging.
Yes.
Marvel, you can make a better Marvel Snap without the Marvel IP, and it would not be 1/10 as successful. It
yep.
just wouldn't.
Oh,
And
I
you
don't
could
know
say the
if I
same
would.
thing about this.
Yeah, the Marvel IP is half the reason I play
It
it.
carries it for I
Yeah.
would say it carries it for more people than it doesn't. Like I think it's easy, especially for card game people, like myself, to be like, oh, people are playing it because they love the card game. It's like, no, a lot of
It's
people
a
are playing it.
snowball effect. Like I say, I don't have a strong connection to the Marvel IP, but like you guys wouldn't have picked it up if it wasn't Marvel, and I wouldn't have picked it up if you guys weren't playing it and I
Well,
saw it. So it kind of creates
it
uh
matters. I would have picked it up
yeah.
regardless because I was just interested to see what Ben Brode had cooked up because I spent like 8 years playing Hearthstone.
Same.
Yeah.
That was what
That
drew me in.
was
I'm Marvel wasn't really the thing that drew me into it. Like I've been pretty like neutral towards Marvel. Like I've enjoyed
okay.
some of the movies. I really like Venom and Spider-Man, whatnot. So like there are things of Marvel I like, but I've never been like a super fan or anything like that. I
Zombies.
never was a
Before
comic
Marvel
person.
Snap, I never saw an MCU movie.
I believe that. I'm sure there are people like that in the same position as
Oh,
you, but I
that's
think it's
actually
like a
not true.
minority.
I saw Black Panther, but that was it. Like
Yeah,
literally, that was it. And I didn't really even know that Black Panther was connected to this whole universe of film. Um,
but
which,
people love the IP, and that's what brings a
yeah,
lot of people in. And that's why it's like if Hearthstone was made today, I don't think it would be half as successful because the Warcraft IP doesn't carry the weight it carried in
no,
2010.
Yeah.
Like Warcraft was so huge, so making like a card game in that genre or in that IP was really big. Magic's always been really big, but I think that's one of the biggest challenges for card games is card games are kind of niche, so they need a known entity to get people in the door. And
yep,
Marvel was very good about that. And that's, I think that's like half of the reason Snap is so successful
Yeah.
is they combined a well-known IP and characters with a gameplay speed and style that was very easy for people to learn and fit into their life compared to like other card games. And that's
yeah,
like a big part of why Snap had so much success. And Pokemon is trying to do the exact same thing. It's
Yeah.
not doing it in the same way gameplay wise, but it's trying to be this fast, accessible card game, easy to learn. And you only have to log in once a day and you open your free packs. You maybe play one game or something and you've done your dailies. And if you don't want to play anymore that day, you're not missing out on anything really. And as far as like being casual friendly goes, I think Pokemon seems more casual friendly than Marvel Snap, especially in times where maybe you're not like enjoying the meta or whatever. It just, there's so little effort to keeping up with Pokemon, and Pokemon, the packs are actually exciting. Like,
Yeah, opening packs is like a core experience of the game.
Yeah.
And I think that it's as someone that's opened a lot of packs, because I'm in New Zealand. Yeah, getting opening. It feels really good. It almost reminds me of like how I felt the first time I opened a Hearthstone pack, and
yeah, that's what it
that,
takes me back to too. Like Hearthstone
yeah,
was my first card game where I got really into it. Aside from when I was like a kid and did physical card games, Hearthstone was
yeah,
the first like digital card game I got really into. Um, and so like this definitely reminded me of that a bit because I've never played any of the Pokemon card games. Huge Pokemon fan. You can see the Pokemon art behind me. I've got all the Game Boy, the original Game Boy games in Japanese in box on my wall. Uh, what Red through Crystal. Like I'm a huge
Nice.
Pokemon fan. I love Pokemon. Played all the games. But I never got into the card game. I collected some cards, but I never learned how to play it. And I'm not really in a position where I'm able or interested in picking up like a physical card game right now. Uh, and I've heard less than great things about the client for TCG Live.
oh,
Uh,
it's.
I'm
I
sure that
say
could
it's
be its own podcast.
yeah, it could be. It's just bad. I
It's just not
mean,
great. Even for people who really like the game, the client
yeah,
for the main Pokemon
Yeah.
game is not great.
I
So
would suffer. I would suffer through a bad client, but this one's to me, it's unplayable. But anyways, please continue.
yeah, so having an intro into Pokemon that is simple and streamlined and fast, fun games, like that is exactly the type of thing I was looking for. And my biggest concern with Pocket, and I feel like this is a lot of people's concern going into it, is if you look at all the advertising they did, it's all about collecting. It's all about collecting. They didn't even show the gameplay, like ever,
Yeah, it's
until
true.
like creators got a little preview thing. Um, right before the soft launch. So my concern was, okay, it's going to be a collector simulator, and then gameplay is going to be tacked on afterwards. That was like the biggest worry I had about it. And I can safely say so far, it's good. Like the gameplay is actually good and compelling, and I've played it for like, I don't know.
A
I've done
lot.
a couple long streams. I probably put in over like 20 or 30 hours into the game in the first like week or whatever we had access to. I put a bunch of time and I'm loving it. Like I'm having a lot of fun with it. I'm trying out different things. There are obviously some things that are like, stronger and whatnot, but it doesn't feel like the game is imbalanced terribly or anything like that. It feels like a lot of different things can compete. And the gameplay itself is simple, but there is depth to decision making. Like it's not playing itself. Like I have had moments where I made a mistake or my opponent made a mistake, and it was like it severely altered the course of the game. So you
Mhm.
do
It
have to actually
feels,
think about things.
yeah, it really feels like Pokemon. So one of the things I like about the Pokemon TCG is that it really captures the spirit of singles battles where you have to like retreat and kind of like
Yes.
time your entrances properly. And I was really worried that with like a simplified version of the game, that dynamic would be lost. But as I've been playing better and better players, because even though there's no ranked ladder, there is still some MMR matchmaking on there. Yeah, the gameplay really feels true to the source material, which is really really cool.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's fun and satisfying getting to play with like they know their audience with this one, I think. Because most of the base set is the original 151. There are like 226 cards in the base set, and you have the full I think all 151 original Kanto Pokemon. They are going for, it's the millennial era. They're trying to make that millennial money, and everyone remembers the original 151. So that's a huge core part of like the base set here. And I think they're really trying to capitalize on that like 2 packs a day thing, like give people that nostalgia of opening a pack of cards, and some of the
Mhm.
art is the same of the old school cards. So it's like you remember that Farfetch'd or that Hitmonchan or what have you. Even though the mechanics are different for the game, like people remember the art. There's also new art, new mechanics, all that type of stuff. But they're
Full
really
art
baiting
stuff is
people.
crazy too.
I
Like,
think. Oh yeah, and
yeah,
that's where they're going to
so
make the
good.
money. Also, like people chasing the fancy cosmetics, I think is where they're going to make a lot of their money. Because in terms of actually acquiring the cards, the game's obviously front loaded. Every card game's front loaded. Snap's front loaded. They all give you a bunch of stuff at the start.
Yep.
But Pokemon's kind of cool because like some people have learned you can just like delete your account and start over. So if you don't like what you got out of all your free stuff, or maybe you got decent pulls, but it's not for a deck you want to play. Like let's say I want to play Mewtwo, and I open a bunch of Charizard, or I open a bunch of cards in the Mewtwo packs that aren't helping me towards Mewtwo. You can basically restart your account and get all that free stuff again and go again until you get a good start, which I think is a good strategy.
And I just want to clarify that for those that have played other gachas, you can restart your account on the same email. You don't have to keep registering new emails. They just let you blow the account anytime and start over, like with the same. If you tie it to your Nintendo account or your Apple account or your Google account, you can re-roll as many times as you want. They're not punitive for that. And so people have been re-rolling, and some people want to re-roll for the cool cosmetic cards. Others want to get a specific deck, like the Charizard deck, and so that is available. It seems to work. So that's pretty cool.
It's a big tool in the free-to-play players' arsenal because, like, you're free once you get past the initial showering of free packs. It slows down. Like, I'm not gonna say they're showering you in free packs all the time. They are. Like, it runs out, and then you're getting your 2 packs a day, 3 if you get the pass. And you do get a little bit of currency elsewhere from doing the solo content and leveling your player level up, like there are, and daily login stuff. But in general, it does slow down, and you're just getting those 2 packs a day, and you're opening them, and you're slowly building your collection. But I think that's like going to go over really well with people because like it's just so friendly for getting into it. It's very easy to explain for people who've never tried it before. And there's really no barrier to entry here. It feels like the barrier is so low, and it can't be overstated by how ridiculously overpowered the Pokemon IP is. If you think Marvel's big, one thing I feel like I got a bunch of pushback on when I first covered like some info about Pocket on my channel, was so many people, and I think this is just like, a bias because people like one IP more than the other, and that's totally fine. Everyone, likes what they like. But I saw so many comments where people were like, no, Pokemon's for kids, Marvel's the adult IP, blah blah blah, all this stuff. Marvel, I like, people clearly like the Marvel IP more.
Oh, I'm surprised.
It was very funny to see because one, it's very obvious both Marvel and Pokemon are doing a lot of work to appeal to children. Like, so I wouldn't really call either one of them a more adult focused IP. But more importantly, like in terms of just wide reaching audience stuff, and like Pokemon's the biggest multimedia franchise in the world. It's earned, I think, 3 times what Marvel has in terms of dollars.
That's
like
wild.
Pokemon's insane. It's earned more than Marvel and Star Wars put together. It's nuts. Like, I think especially if you haven't like been around like Pokemon stuff over the years, like you just remember it from back in the day, I think it's easy to think, oh, it's just this thing, they're trying to get kids interested in the games or the cards or whatever. Pokemon's ridiculous. It is huge. It is bigger than I think most people comprehend. So combining that with like a thing where it's fun to collect and play with the cards in what I view as a fairly free to play friendly game, I think it's going to be massive. Like, remember when Pokemon Go came out? That was a cultural phenomenon. And I don't think this is going to have the same reach as Go, because Go was very unique and it happened at a unique time and all this stuff. But I do think it's going to be really high, especially when they don't have it yet. And I don't think it's going to be at launch, but I'm hoping it's not too far after. There's going to be trading in this game. It is a trading card game which is something we haven't seen in digital card games really.
Since Pokemon TCG, not live, but the one that preceded it. And I suspect they're gonna apply some lessons learned from that very suboptimal model.
Yeah, I mean, the only other card games I can think of that have done it are Magic Online, which has been around since the 90s, so they kind of were locked into that. But the more recent ones, Artifact, for the
Okay,
three
not
people who
really a
remember
good
that.
example.
And then I think probably the crypto games, crypto card games,
Oh,
scam
yeah.
things, I'm sure have trading or something. But big main name card games have never really done trading on their digital versions, except for really just Magic because it was so old.
I hope they do it right though, because they did trading in
too.
Pokemon TCGO, and it was
Yeah,
really
that's
bad.
what I was talking about. It was terrible.
really
Yeah, they have to
bad.
be very careful about it because the reason companies don't do trading in this, the reason you can't trade in Marvel Snap is because it's just a lose-lose for the business most of the time. You end up creating like a secondary market, and the money being exchanged or the things being exchanged is just totally absent from like the company making the game. So there's no incentive for them to do that. So I imagine there's going to be restrictions on trading, especially with the account re-rolling stuff. What's to stop someone from just making a bunch of alts and getting good stuff and then trading it over to the main? There are going to be some limiters here, because otherwise it just wouldn't work. Trading is very exploitable and it's hard to make work. So that's why most card games don't do it for digital. And I'm very curious and interested to see how they handle trading, because I think it will be a huge boon to the game because people like trading cards. Like, I've opened a bunch of packs and I have some extras of some valuable cards. I would like to be able to trade.
I have 4 Charizard like animated like EXs, like the 3-star one.
Wow.
I have 4
Really?
of them. And I don't have Hypno.
And I don't have.
If I get Hypno, I get Mew. I'll have all the cards.
Oh wow!
Not the alternate art, like the crazy ones, but the base cards. I'll have them all.
Where it went bad in Pokemon TCGO was that like packs were used as currency, and so you were like, you want one EX or GX or
You're
tag
trading
team.
a million packs.
It was like
yeah.
40 packs for one card, and it was like, that
Yeah,
was
but
insane.
wasn't that bad, Nate? Because you could get the packs so cheaply, but
cheap.
it was such a roundabout way of doing it that most people didn't bother.
People wanted new packs, and that was the thing. Is like,
Yeah.
and like it was just rough, you know. And then we'd sometimes go to the card shops, and like they knew us, so they'd like give us the code cards.
Codes, yeah.
But sometimes like it was crazy. You'd have to buy them, or you could go online and buy.
That's what I did. I went online and I bought codes, but like it's a big hassle. So I agree with you. I do want to be conscious of our time. I know that we had a bit of a hard stop, so perhaps unless there are any final thoughts, we'll end it there. I will say this. I would like to do, it doesn't have to be a continuous thing, but perhaps we'll do a Born to be Snorlax shortly after the global launch, and we can talk a little bit about the meta and the cards and our experience in more detail. Because
we'll
I'm
probably
going to
know
be
more
playing...
stuff about the game too, right? Because like I think there's a lot of information that isn't being discussed or whatnot from the company because it's just the New Zealand soft launch, and I think we're gonna have a lot more information. Like right now, we don't even know when new sets happen. They could do a new set every month. They could do it every 4 months. We don't know, and that plays a part in the game's economy, right? Depending on how often new cards come into the game and all this type of stuff. But one thing I do want to mention is, and I think this will appeal to some people who haven't been as big of a fan of like Snap's balancing philosophy, where things change a lot. I think Pokemon's going to be, it sounds like they want it to be more like a physical trading card game, where it's like, it's not like they'll never nerf a card or buff a card or whatever, but they've been pretty clear that they want that to be kind of a last resort.
Yeah.
And they'd rather like the new cards change things rather than relying on just like constantly changing existing things, which if you really like all the changes in Snap, that's probably a downside for you. If you think Snap changes a bit too much and can be difficult to keep up with, that's
This
probably an upside
is-
for you.
And this is really in line with how Pokemon TCG works. Like Pokemon TCG, very, very, very seldomly are there balance changes. Also, if they're going to continue to follow Pokemon TCG as a model, they do rotation. So it's very
Yeah, that's
possible
another
that
big
if
one.
Pocket becomes a thing, we could see eventually after a couple of years the notion of rotation, which is highly speculative on my part. We don't know, but just right now, the pattern is that they're trying to emulate the Pokemon TCG experience in a more portable,
Fast, streamlined,
fast,
portable
streamlined
way.
way. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, really, really enjoying it. Really excited. I have a tier list on my Twitter. It's already out of date. If you happen to look at it, I would still say I stand by most of it. I would probably replace all my Kangaskhan's with Farfetcheds. But beyond that, it's probably good enough. I'll probably revise it at global launch because we'll have more information and just more games in by then. But yeah, a lot of deck variety, I guess, is really the thing that I'll just leave off with. And
it's fun, it's fast, it's good. It looks like to be inexpensive, relatively speaking, and yeah, I enjoy it quite a bit.
It's so much for context. So I spent money on the game because I want to do content on the game. I was going to be a casual, depending on how the gameplay looked and how things were. I was like, well, if I'm not going to do content, then I'll probably be a casual and just do the pass. But I've liked the game enough to where I do want to do content and stream it and do videos and stuff. So I was like, all right, I'll spend some money so I can play a lot of different decks. And so I dropped $200 on this game. Now, I remember when Snap first came out, I had a head start because I played the beta. So I was like 1200, 1300 collection level. And it was expensive for me to speed up my progress in Snap to finish pool 3. Like,
yeah,
I don't remember the exact number. It was significantly more than what I have paid in
hundreds of
Pokemon.
dollars.
Yeah, it was
easily.
like it was at least north of, I want to say, like $400 or something and that was with someone who had a head start. I wasn't starting from scratch.
Yeah.
And so in Pokemon, I dropped $200 on the base set and I can play almost every deck in the game.
Do you have a full collection?
No, so I'm missing 6 cards exactly. If I wanted to right now, I could go and craft them. And I'm probably going to craft the Alakazams, but I'm just opening my free packs now and just hoping I get them to save resources.
You basically can be collection complete with a relative investment of money. I have heard some criticism from the free-to-play people that the 2 packs starts to feel really bad.
Once you have, the more cards you have, like the worse packs feel, right? Because there's no like duplicate protection or anything. So sometimes you get unlucky and you won't get that one
maybe
card.
Maybe trading will even that out a little bit.
But yeah, I think trading will help with that quite a bit. And there are some other systems in the game like crafting and the Wonder Pick system, which do ease those pains a little bit.
Right.
But I do think if like you're just looking for a fun, free to play friendly game, like I think there's a lot of fun to be had in Pokemon without spending money.
All of the people that I know IRL that play Snap casually, I told them about the game and they're like, yeah, I'll download it because they're free to play mobile gamers. That's all they do. So they seemed pretty intrigued at the notion. And again, like it's amazing how like this 2-pack a day marketing thing was, because I was like telling them, oh, it's gonna be like fast games, streamlined, whatever, and they're like, oh, okay, you get 2 packs a day.
And they're like,
what? Really? And it's like, oh man, like really, like, but I mean, you know,
that's why that's the front of the marketing, is because that's what draws people in, is the free packs and whatnot. And
system works, I guess, you know.
And it's fun. Like people like opening packs of cards and collecting cards. Like it's just a thing. And I think there's a lot of potential for the game. I'm excited to see where it goes. If you're looking for another fast-paced card game, I think Pokemon should be on your radar.
Yeah.
Just be aware, like go into it knowing that the game isn't trying to be Marvel Snap. It's not trying to have the same gameplay as Snap. The gameplay is so remarkably different, and I'm sure some people won't like the gameplay, and that's totally fine. I've really enjoyed the gameplay.
It's fun.
I like how it's different. It's and whatnot. But again, where it really competes with Snap to me is just the speed. Like the one more game that I can play a game quickly. I can open the app and spend like 5 minutes, and I've done all the daily things. Like
I
it's
can play it
just
on
fast.
the toilet without my legs falling asleep.
Yeah, yeah.
Not
it's-
that I ever would take the phone into the washroom with me. I'm not a heathen. I really
It's,
am a heathen.
that's our bit on Pokemon. It's cool. I'm looking forward to the launch. I think a lot of other people are. I think the game has a lot of potential. And yeah, if you take a very quick trip to New Zealand and you want to get a head start, that's something you can do. There are a lot of tutorials out there on how to do it. It's not that hard.
And you have a new YouTube channel as well, right?
I do. I converted my old VOD channel into a Pokemon Pocket channel, and
Nice.
been posting some deck stuff there, some other stuff about the game, and yeah, I have high hopes for it. So if
Good.
you want to see Pokemon Pocket stuff, I have it linked on my main channel on YouTube, but not hard to find.
There you go. Well, so there you have it. There is our episode 40 extravaganza. Thank you for listening. If you've made it to the end, we appreciate you, and we will do our best to try and keep it Cosmo. I thank you, Zombies and Nate, for being very accommodating again for me with the schedule. You guys are truly patient, and I appreciate you both. And we'll catch you on the flip side. Take care, everyone.
Yep, keep it Cosmo.
Keep it Cosmo. Dang it, where's my sound effect?
Enough said,
Bob.
There you go.
Oh man, wait, say it again. Say it again.
Enough said, Bob.
Oh god, it's so good.